So we're going to discuss today labels on different drinks out there that are here in India, and we want to see whether some of them have the recommended ranges or not, and some of the concerns that are there with some of these labels and how sometimes it can be confusing. So first, let's talk about the recommended ranges, and then we'll go from there and look at each of these products.
So I feel for nutrition labels, it's always better to just look at recommendations for per 100 ml because that's what most of the drinks would give you a recommendation for, so sort of makes it easier. So if you're talking about sodium, for example, that would range somewhere between 46 to 92 milligrams per 100 ml of the fluid. Potassium would be 11.7 to 39 milligrams, so that's quite a big range. And then carbohydrates would be 4 to 7.5 grams per 100 ml of fluid that athletes are getting. So let's just get on with the drinks and compare the nutrition labels, see if they're meeting these recommendations. And then
so the first one here is a glucose drink that's out on the market. It has some calories, has some carbohydrates, calcium, phosphorus, vitamin C, no sodium or potassium, it looks like. So we kind of transferred the amounts in this to per 100 ml because on this one it is the amount per serving is 35 grams. And the 35 grams is supposed to be mixed with 200 ml. Okay, so we've kind of simplified it by kind of doing the calculations for you. So this has how much?
So what stands out is that it has actually 16 grams of carbohydrates per 100 ml, which would be almost double what the higher range for recommendations was. So 4 to 7.5 grams is what an isotonic solution would qualify as.
And the issue, so the issue with 16 is what? The double?
So what it does is actually flushes out more sugar from the blood in a way because there's insulin release and then there's a post-insulin lull. So instead of having 6 grams or 8 grams of sugar in your blood, you actually are left with almost nothing because most of the sugar is being flushed out. So it's actually too much. So one strategy could be to have this as a diluted solution, but then again calculating 35 grams according to a spoon as a powder, that's a big task in itself. So
and is there issues with gastrointestinal stuff with having high concentrations of glucose?
So it actually has sucrose and glucose as a concentration. Now sucrose would be glucose plus fructose, so if you have it in a very concentrated manner, maybe say 35 grams per 100 ml, so that would be double of what a typical serve is, there could be a chance that you may feel
so the 16 probably is not the level that would cause gastrointestinal distress. Okay, so that's one. Then we have a sports drink here, and this is also easily available. Label is pretty difficult because again they kind of put it, a lot of labels out there are per 100 ml, but this one and this one are per 200 ml. Okay, so break it down for us.
Okay, so this sports drink, when we break it down in terms of 100 ml, so actually it has the higher range of sodium, so 71 milligrams, so it's fairly within the range. Also potassium is close to the higher end, so 39 being the higher end, this actually has 37 milligrams per 100 ml. In terms of sugar, this one's an isotonic solution, so it matches the levels of sugar in your blood in a way. 6.25 grams is what athletes would get with a typical serve of this drink. The type of sugar is again a sucrose plus glucose, so having a concentrated solution of this, you may get some gastrointestinal distress because of the fructose present in it. So,
but at recommended range, it should be fine.
It should be fine,
And the big thing with this one is that it's towards the higher end, but still in the range.
Still within the range, yes.
Okay. All right, great. And here's another sports drink on the market. This one actually has the concentrations per 100 ml, so this is easier. So go ahead and tell us about this one.
So it's mostly within the range for sodium, so 48 milligrams per 100 ml. A typical serve like that, 500 ml would give you 240 milligrams. 13 milligrams of potassium per 100 ml,
Okay.
6 grams of sugar, and the type of sugar is dextrose, so fairly simple glucose, no mixture of sugars, so just one simple sugar and it goes into the bloodstream fairly quickly.
So this is better in that sense.
Yeah.
When
Also,
sourced.
it's within all the ranges like the previous drink,
Yeah.
but then again, you don't have to calculate in terms of the serve because it's.
And this seems to have actually the lower end of all the ranges.
Yeah.
At least the potassium and the
And
sodium.
Yeah.
Whereas this one has the higher.
The higher end. Yeah.
All right. So then the next one, some coconut water.
Mm-hmm.
This one is labeled per 100 ml, so this is easier.
Yeah.
4.5 grams per 100 ml.
Mm-hmm.
And sodium is 10 milligrams, potassium
Yeah.
200 milligrams.
Yeah. So big difference between the potassium and the sodium. Both actually don't meet the ranges. So 10 milligrams of sodium is not the range that
It's lower.
athletes should be looking
Yeah.
at. It is lower than what is recommended. Potassium, on the other hand, is higher than what is recommended. So in terms of the sugar as well, it's very close to the low range. But then again, it's a natural sugar. So breaking this down should be fairly simple for the body and doesn't need to be metabolized by the liver or anything.
Okay. So this is interesting that basically this meets the carbs recommendations but not sodium and potassium.
Yes.
Because this is not formulated for sports.
Yeah. So it has no added sugar.
These two are formulated for sports. This one might be marketed as that, but it doesn't have sodium and potassium.
Yes.
All right, so this one is another common one, ORS.
Mm-hmm.
What does this one have?
Okay. So for ORS, the sodium levels are quite high than what is recommended. Same for potassium as well.
Wow.
It doesn't meet the glucose range as well. So in terms of carbohydrates, 4 to 7.5 grams is what is needed. It's actually 1.3 grams of dextrose. So again, simple but just not enough.
Yeah, ORS is a popular one that we hear
Yeah.
and get questions about, and that's a good kind of distinction with that is that I think what this is really mainly for is emergency situations where somebody might already be in distress and
or in some kind of a hyponatremia, which will be low sodium levels, so you really want to bump it up with a higher end. So and then I think the way we didn't really introduce that the idea with the ideal drink is that it has, I mean, we kind of went into the ranges, but I was just going to kind of bring it back to that in closing. So with all of these have varying degrees of sodium, potassium, carbohydrate, and the big issue here is kind of bringing it back to the big picture is that when we're exercising, we use up carbohydrates, we lose sodium and potassium, and so we need to replenish it, but we need to do it in a way that is utilized by the body as quickly as possible, because these drinks, sports drinks specifically, are to be used while training. So this is not for recreational, just kind of sitting at home and watching TV or something like that. So there is a specific purpose and there's specific science behind why these ranges are the way they are. Because it has to match the osmolarity of the blood in a way. So if the drink is one membrane and the blood is one, then there has to be similar concentration for the nutrients to pass through quickly. And that's why we want to match the ranges to what the recommended range is for these drinks.
Yeah, good. All right, well that closes our little introduction of some common products out there and what the concentrations of carbohydrates, potassium, and sodium are, and why they're useful, and maybe some of the things you need to look for. You can't just simply look at the label and compare both of them, because sometimes
different ranges
and also
different
they have
sizes,
different serving sizes. So just be careful about that for those that are listening, and you should be able to make a decision better now.
Yeah, absolutely.